Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome to another episode of my podcast. And, I don't know what I'm doing with this podcast. The episode before this was a monologue episode talking about social media. And the one before that was a history episode with a soundtrack that I scored for it. And episodes before that were a similar mishmash mix of the things that I mentioned and guests, people that I have on. But on this episode, we have Eli Bajalia, and Eli Bajalia is a permaculturist. It's kind of late right now, and I'm doing this while it's late, and I had like a few beers, but permaculture is really important, and people don't realize how important it is. It's something with which you can redesign the landscape in a fundamental way and make food. Instead of me telling you about it, our guest today is Eli Bajalia, and he'll tell you all about it. He's an unassuming character in the sense of like Steven Spielberg. Like, you wouldn't guess that the guy with a baseball cap and those 80s jeans was a director of his caliber. Well, Eli is the Steven Spielberg of plant life. The Umbrella Corporation. Our business is life itself. This podcast episode is brought to you by nothing.
Try it for free.
Your face.
Is it?
See you. No, it's fine.
I got you.
All right.
You're blocking me with the camera.
All right. Eli is a person, a dude that I've known for quite some time. Like, I don't know, like 13 years or something like that.
Been a minute.
Yeah, and he's actually, I'm not going to tell you anything about him. He's right here. So, can you tell me, like, what you do with? I know you do a lot of different stuff. Like, you play the banjo and you know how to cook Arabic food and stuff. I call you my Arabic hillbilly friend.
That's a good one. Never quite heard that before. No. I'm digging it though. No, yes, I do play music. I play the banjo.
Yeah.
I tried to play like Arabic instruments, and then Goliath goes out and buys an oud and learns how to play it in like 3 days. Like, I struggled on that thing. That's like an ancient mandolin. They call them ouds.
They're fretless, man.
It's really bizarre. I think the closest instrument that most people might know is a lute, right? It came from like a medieval lute, or that was like the later version of the oud. The oud was prior to that. But yeah, I just kind of play the banjo and bass. Started playing bass, like electric bass. I used to play in like alternative bands and metal bands. Had a band called Malachi Sage that played around Jacksonville for a few years. It was pretty pissed off metal grunge kind of band.
Malachi Sage, where does that come from?
I don't know, man. The guys in the band made it up. I was like I was the youngest guy in the band.
Just joined the band?
Yeah, I was the youngest guy in the band. They killed it. They were all really, really good. We were into like that grunge thing back in the day. We used to play at a place called Spike's Doghouse. It was really interesting. In Arlington, it was like, you remember that place? It was like a heavy metal biker bar.
Where are those now, man? Just in St. Augustine.
I don't know. I don't go out to bars like that anymore. But so then I got into the banjo like 10 years ago and started really pursuing that. And it's really, really hard. I'm still not that good at it. 3-finger banjo, like Earl Scruggs style banjo. You have the finger picks and everything. And it's just a pain in the butt. Learned off a tab. Like my musical ear is awful. Where like you listen to something once and you got it. So struggling at that. And then I was mentored by this old timey guy from North Carolina. He married a friend of mine. He was from like Boone area, like Todd, North Carolina to be exact. And like he moved down here. He didn't have any friends and literally just took me under his wing, and he taught me clawhammer banjo, which is like a completely different style of banjo. You don't use the finger picks, and it's more rhythmic. It's not like a performance oriented music where like everyone takes a break. It's like kind of like all about the groove, and it's dance music. You'll see like 80-year-old people jump up out of their seat and start dancing. It's pretty awesome. This is like fiddle music. That's what people call it, like Appalachian fiddle music.
Sounds like a revival to me.
It is. It's happening, man. Like there's big bands like Devil Makes Three and like all these huge acts that are playing like tenor banjos and old timey clawhammer banjo. It's cool. Young people are into it. Mainly young people with tattoos, from what I've noticed.
Really?
It seems that way.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm young. I'm not into it.
Yeah.
That much.
But you play many instruments, so you got it going on. You don't have time for that crap.
Yeah, I used to go to the jams on Tuesdays.
Yeah, the old timey jam.
Yeah, they have those jams.
Yeah, Rain Dogs.
And this camera is like falling.
Oh.
And yeah, so yeah, man. I think I always thought it was interesting you were into the banjo, and as much as you're into the banjo, like you're really into it. Like you'd be really into it at the place where, I played at this place, and he'd take me to the kitchen, and because there was a restaurant, and he would like show me all this different stuff.
Different kinds of music, yeah, really
it's
interesting.
Like holding me hostage back there, making me listen to this banjo music.
Yeah, it's it's really interesting because like you got Bela Fleck, who's like one of the leading jazz musicians on the planet, and his main instrument's the banjo. That's what he plays, so he kind of brought it out to the forefront, and showed people that you could play like multiple genres of music on the banjo. And then he put out this album. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's called Throw Down Your Heart. He went to Africa to find like the roots, like these ancient instruments that the banjo stem from. And man, that album's so good. You gotta check that one out.
It's really pentatonic, like the African music. It's really like five notes, like it's pentatonic, like 5 notes, like very Asian sounding.
Yeah, I can hear it. Yeah, I could see that or hear that. But like I said, that's all like musical talk that's over my head. Like I was trained by like an old timey musician, and it was all about just like playing along to a fiddle. But check out that album. You guys should definitely listen to that one. Throw Down Your Heart. It's like a journey into the banjo, and he's playing like duets with like marimba, like thumb pianos. Like these guys are just like tearing up the thumb pianos, and they're picking note for note, and like these melodies are just ridiculous.
You're talking about
yeah, they call them marimbas. They're like there's little thumb pianos. There's thumb pianos with many keys on there.
Oh wow!
Like many little notes, and these guys just shred them.
So over here they call them kalimba.
Kalimbas.
Kalimba.
Yeah,
Kalimbas.
There's big ones.
Yeah. A friend of mine brought me one from the east.
Yeah. Down there in like I think it's Tanzania is like the main instrument down there. It's only the men are supposed to play it. There's some women kalimba players out there, but Bela Fleck found the best ones when he went to Africa.
Why? What happens if men play? I mean, what happens if women play?
They're just not traditionally supposed to play.
Like some genie comes out of it.
They're just not supposed to play it,
Yeah.
But he went down there and jammed with these guys, and it was just like the most unreal African music I've ever. Like I'm really into African music. I love all African music, like from Afrobeat, like Fela Kuti, like funk Afrobeat music, like. People don't know that guy was like the James Brown of Africa, man. That kind of stuff's cool. And the Anti-Ballast, I don't know if you've heard of that.
How long have you been into African music?
Since I got dialed in on the banjo.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, because I learned that it came from like a couple of instruments from Africa, like the akonting, which is like an ancient banjo, and then the kora. Have you seen the kora?
Yeah, that's a
wild instrument.
It looks like some like science fiction instrument, like from some fantasy movie.
It's pretty,
and surprisingly, I haven't seen it in a fantasy movie, which it belongs in.
Right? You jammed with that guy here locally. Ajamu
Mutima.
Yeah, great kora player.
Yeah, he's fun, man.
There's this other band you need to check out. They're from Asheville. It's like a jam band, and the lead instrument is the kora, and it's electrified. They're called what is it, like Tubab Crew. Yeah, Tubab Crew, Krew.
It's like Two Live Crew.
Yeah, but Tubab. And it's traditional like African jams, but electrified with like a kind of rock edge to it. And the lead singer went over there, or the lead front guy went over there and learned in Africa, and he's got a fully electric one, and it's wild, man. They're good band for sure. So the African instruments are making a comeback,
Yeah.
Even in all this hipster music that's coming out now, like folk, this folk revival thing.
Dude, I don't know what is going on with music. Right.
Right.
I'm like, I don't really want to get into it because I want to talk about what you do, but I'll tell you briefly is I stopped listening to music when MP3s became ubiquitous. And I didn't realize it right away.
Right.
I just noticed that one day I stopped listening to music. I wasn't listening to music anymore.
The sound quality turned to crap.
Well, it's like, I have a very sensitive ear to music, and it just, the basses they don't thump, and the kick drums, they don't exactly
Everything's
kick.
like squashed.
Well, it's more like
Compressed.
instead of it being like a boop, it's more like a,
Gotcha.
and then all the highs, like the hi-hats and stuff like that, it's like flangey, like
It's terrible. Yeah,
for talk, it's fine.
Yeah.
But for a big spectrum,
No,
like music.
Yeah, they
So
now
I
you
don't
can
know what I'm
take
gonna
your
do, man. And I just heard about this French company that is streaming service, and you can download music from it too, and it's all 44.1 and 48 kilobyte.
Gotcha.
Like, wait,
Oh,
you
wow.
have to pay for it.
Wow. So it still
Yeah.
sounds good.
It's like a Pandora, but it's like CD quality.
But like, how are they recording it? Is it like being recorded
CD
on
quality.
tape? Oh, CD quality.
Oh, it's the WAV file,
Gotcha.
and then that's what you're listening to.
Gotcha.
So that's a lot of bandwidth there.
Yeah, for sure.
So so you do something that is really kind of still a mystery to me is you do permaculture.
Yep.
And permaculture, tell me what it is briefly. Like
Permaculture is a design science in which we kind of model nature. So we're trying to build systems that are resilient and
a design science in agriculture.
Well, not just agriculture. You can't have a permanent culture, which is where permaculture came from, without permanent agriculture. So that's just one small little component of it. It's really like redesigning like human habitat and like really like looking at things completely different. Like, why is my garden like at the back of my backyard when I need to go out there and like get food to bring it into my kitchen? Why is the garden not like right next to the kitchen? Why do I want to walk 100 yards to go get my food? So you incorporate these things into your life. Kind of like it simplifies your life. Number one, every time you simplify your life, you are creating it's just like everything's easier for you. So permaculture, we look at natural systems. It's like, why has agriculture and why do we build our homes in little boxes, right? The little boxes aren't very efficient use of space. Where you look at a geodesic dome, it's like this big, huge open space. It's the same amount of square footage, but it's like a nice open floor plan that's much stronger, much more resilient to the weather, needs a lot less repair. There's no load-bearing walls. The structure itself makes a lot more sense than these little houses we live in, little boxed-in compartments.
And when you say geodesic dome, what does that mean, geodesic?
It's just a
for us
dome.
Chicanos that are ignorant.
It's just like a dome structure. You've seen like a building with
okay,
a dome.
yeah.
Yeah, it's built with triangles.
Yeah,
just
I
a bunch
dig
of
it.
triangles put together, and the room is like open, and it's way stronger than a normal like home. It's totally like hurricane proof, right? So it's like you look at things a little differently when you do permaculture. So we model natural systems to design our gardens. So we're not like trying to literally scrape the earth clean and start from scratch.
So
we work with what's there.
So it's antithetical to like what a housing development would do.
Oh God, yes.
It's the complete opposite of
complete opposite, yeah. So we look at things like water flows, the way the water flows through the landscape. We're not trying to like shed the water away. Like here, everything's designed with like, in Florida, we get a lot of rain, so everything's designed like to shed water away, but like let's put it back down to the ground, not just out to the rivers via the sewer. So let's soak this water into our landscapes, into like ponds that maybe produce food for us, right? Like aquaculture. Yeah. So as we're storing this water and saving it from running off into the river, we're also like cleaning it. So we're sending it through different systems, like, reed beds and different filtration, kind of like nature does with ponds and like little silt traps. So we look at these systems that are all around us. And we try to model them and turn them, and kind of like use that as our design,
Yeah, the problem with that is that it makes too much sense.
I know, right? And no one's getting paid.
And things around here, they just, I don't know if it's like this all across America. Well, I don't think it is.
Pretty
Maybe it is.
much,
But
from
just,
what I've seen.
if it makes a lot of sense, I'm like, yeah, we don't do things like that around here.
There's no money to be made in making sense, sensible design. I mean, like, that guy that comes out and mows your yard, he's going to be out of a job. That guy that comes out and sprays chemicals on your yard, he's going to be out of a job because your yard's going to be modeled from nature, which means, you know, all the trees drop their leaves on the ground and build a fertility for that next season. Where we rake all the leaves up, put them in bags, and take them out to the street. The bags are produced with like petrochemicals. So like, I drive around and pick up the bags, and I haul people's leaves back to my house and compost them and put them back onto my landscape. So I'm like, thanks for bagging them up for me, man.
One man's trash.
Right? So like, you have to look at things completely different. You know, mainly it's around energy. So, you know, the sun fuels everything that happens on this planet. So how can we utilize that energy? You know, water, you know, just these really basic, essential things we need to live that no one even cares about. No one even really looks at.
So what is profitable is trickeration. What is profitable is convoluted systems in which specialists know how they work, and they can tell you how they work, and then you pay them so they can tell you how they work. And
not modeled off of any kind of natural system, because you know, these natural systems have been up and running on the planet for, you know, since the beginning of the planet. So why not look at these things? We know they work. We know they're resilient. We know they're not going anywhere. So we model these things into our everyday lives, not just our gardens, but everything.
So one thing that you said, that it simplifies people's lives.
Sure.
In theory, it does. But if you were going to ask me to figure out how to make this happen in my yard, that's not simple for me. That's not simplifying. You know what's simple for me is getting on my bicycle or in my car and going to the grocery store.
Right.
Giving somebody some $20 and
no, I get it. There's but you know, we've all been disconnected from these natural systems, and it's just a matter of like going back into them. Like, you know, people don't go out to the forest anymore, right? Like, they don't really go into the forest. They might like once every few months on like a family picnic or something, but like, if you walk into the forest, there's so much to be learned about there in the way that those systems work. You know, the trees. No one's going to the forest and fertilizing. No one's going in there and composting. No one's going in there and weeding. And those trees every year get bigger and stronger. And no one's fertilizing anything. And then like, we're dumping all this stuff onto our lawns to get them to stay green. It's just like, to go, you know, you get people back out into nature. You get them to reconnect with like the natural systems that are there.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love what you're saying. And I think it's great. And I've read about permaculture, you know, to a light degree. Yeah. And I'm like, this is the shit. This is awesome. And I'm like, this is never going to work. Meaning that, how long is it going to take, if it ever happens, to educate people?
There's a couple models out there like...
So this is what you need to do, man.
The best model that I found is in Davis, California, really.
It's all because, to you.
Yeah, it's not just me. But like in Davis, California, there's this there's a neighborhood there called Village Homes. It's 30 years old, and the guy who designed this neighborhood, it's literally right down the street from UC Davis, and it's a suburban neighborhood. It's a 60-acre suburban neighborhood with 220 homes, I think. And so the guy that built the neighborhood was like, let's build this neighborhood like totally different than any suburban neighborhood that's ever been built. So what he did is he looked at like the water, because California's got water issues, right? This is in the heart of the Central Valley of California. So what he did is he designed the whole place to capture, trap, and store and sink water into the ground. So the whole neighborhood is built around that, not like streets. You know, the streets are much more narrow there. Okay, so here's like a permaculture tactic. Like, so the streets are much more narrow in Davis, in this neighborhood, Village Homes. There's deciduous trees planted over the streets. So those streets get shaded in the summer when it's hot.
What's deciduous trees?
Trees that lose their leaves in the winter.
Okay.
So in the summer, there's a canopy over all the streets. Yeah. So the place doesn't generate heat. It's not a heat island. Yeah. In the winter,
so you got narrow roads, those trees.
Yeah, it covers so the streets are actually comfortable. Like, it's hot in Davis. You want shade on the asphalt. Whatever asphalt there is, you want shade on it. Yeah. So the place doesn't generate heat. it's actually cool and a comfortable place to live. Where you walk out here on the blacktop pavement outside here, in the middle of summer day, you can't even stand on it. You'll burn your feet. So then in the winter,
my dog knows.
Yeah, and then in the winter, all the leaves fall, and the sun comes in and warms the neighborhood. So those trees were strategically placed along those streets and around people's homes to passively cool their homes, and in the winter let the sun into their homes to warm their homes. So the whole neighborhood was designed, which is very simple permaculture tactics like this. There's a lot of solar and stuff like that, but that's even like too techy from a permaculturist standpoint. Like, we're talking about passive systems that don't need, constant maintenance. Like, you point your house to the south if you want it to get warm in the winter. You make your eaves a little bit longer over your house so the summer sun doesn't come shining into your house, so your house will stay cool in the summer. These are very simple things that builders don't do, even here in Florida. Like, they do not do. And if they did, it would cut our heating and cooling bills down like in half, probably.
Have you, it's probably not in your personality type because it's not in mine.
Right.
But have you ever considered taking a position, like a very part-time position, like at, what do you call it? Like at City Hall, like on the boards of stuff?
I'm too into being in the garden. Like,
okay,
it brings me so much joy to be out there. Like, I would never.
Because there's probably nobody
not here
representing here. Right.
In more progressive cities across America, there are, like, San Francisco has like active permaculturists, like in the like in the government, right? But they can only do so much because it's all like lobbyists and all like corrupt and everything. They can do a little bit to make it seem like they're making a difference. But like that guy who built the neighborhood in Village Homes in Davis, he had to take out like a $30 million bond because they literally put no infrastructure there. So they didn't put like gutters, they didn't put sewer systems because they were trying to soak all the water in, spread it out, soak it passively. So the city of Davis made them pay this ridiculous bond. And then because they didn't have utilities, and they were like, well, what if we got a big, huge rain event that lasted like a week or 2 weeks and the place flooded out? Like, we'd have to come bail your butts out.
Wow.
So what they did is after the place was built, they got a huge storm to come in, and all of Davis, California is underwater.
Wow.
Village Homes, totally high and dry, and they're taking all the extra runoff from the surrounding neighborhoods and soaking it into their neighborhood and putting it into like tree growth and fruit trees and vineyards, and like the whole place is planted up like it's paradise there. And then so like the guy who built the neighborhood, the developer called the city of Davis during this rain event, said, get your engineers down here and check this place out. They came down there and they saw like he was taking all the excess runoff and like dealing with it in a very passive way. And then they pulled the $30 million bond or whatever that he had to pay. They were like, okay, it works.
Yeah. Wait. But you said it flooded, like people's TVs were floating around in the living room and like
in the town of Davis, California. The only place that wasn't flooded out was this neighborhood, this 60-acre neighborhood.
Oh, I see.
And so they were taking all the excess runoff from the remainder of the city and soaking it in and turning it into like productive landscape. So they called the city engineers and all these people down to look at it while it was actually going down.
So who's the leader in the world of permaculture, like mentality, like implementing it?
The guy who wrote the book and coined the term permaculture is a guy named Bill Mollison. He's in his upper 80s. He's pretty old now.
From Copenhagen.
Nah, it started in Australia of all places. And the reason why is because super dry continent. They have major water issues. Like most of Australia is a desert.
It's amazing.
So
it's amazing how much of it is a desert.
I know. And like this is like, I think in 1978, Bill Mollison coined the term. He wrote a book with another guy called David Holmgren, who was more of like a systems analyst. Like he studied the way that natural systems work, and they got together and they wrote a book called Permaculture 1. And then there was another one called Permaculture 2. And then like Bill Mollison went around the world teaching a 72-hour course, which became your PDC, your permaculture design course, which is like a 72-hour course made off of his, like designed off of his book. He's got a manual. It's called the Permaculture Designer's Manual. It's literally like a manual. It's not meant to be read from front to back. It's meant to be taken out to the field. You kind of like see what you got. You're like, okay, we're in an arid like climate at altitude. What can we do here to fix this landscape, right? Most of the deserts are human made. So you can go and just open that book up and find like all these cool designs that he's put together.
What do you mean the deserts are human-made agriculture?
Yeah, overgrazing.
Growing cotton on them and shit?
Overgrazing mainly. Because
Okay.
like the deserts try to like sprout back. We send our goats and our sheep back in there and they chew everything back down to nothing, you know?
Yeah.
So most of the deserts are human made on the planet. Like definitely within the United States for sure. Without
Really?
Yeah, man.
You like Death Valley? Like,
I mean, there are some natural
Chino?
features. There's some natural features, but most of them are human made.
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And the cool thing is you use these permaculture strategies that are in the permaculture designer's manual, and the manual actually is like a repair manual for the land. You go in there and you find certain tactics and strategies you can employ on the land to repair that damaged land. We've done it. Like we've done it here. We've done it. Like I was just in Colorado working on a project in a very desertified part of Colorado that was a little bit of natural desert, but predominantly human-made desert. You know?
So that's what we were talking about right before the podcast. I didn't know that there was a desert in Colorado.
Yeah. The western slope of the Rocky Mountains, meaning anything west of the Great Divide, which starts down in like the Andes and it goes all the way up through the middle of the globe. You could see it on a globe very clear. Anything on the western side of that is pretty arid. They don't get much rain. There's water wars out there, just like most of Mexico, where you're from.
Yeah.
Super arid.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's man-made from overgrazing animals.
Wow.
And very poor agricultural practices like tilling. When you till the earth to grow a crop, it's just like the worst thing ever.
Man, I was recently on the border of Calexico and Mexicali.
Okay.
And
Not familiar with that.
Well, it's just like very near San Diego.
Oh, okay.
And
Just on the other side.
Yeah. And, you could see the mountains in the distance, like huge mountains in the distance, but it's desert mountains. It's
Sure.
not like forest, like trees and shit.
Used to be.
And it is hot there, man. It
Yep.
is so hot there.
And the earth is scorched because the trees are gone.
It is just amazing how hot it is there. And, but it felt good because it was arid, like you said, and it was like there was no humidity.
Sure.
But you can tell that you'll dry out there really quick.
Oh, yeah. Colorado is the same.
The sun, it's got altitude. It's
Sure.
high up.
Yeah.
And
They got volcanoes and stuff down there.
yeah.
I mean, not in that region, but like in parts of Mexico, huge peaks.
Yeah, you can feel, man, whatever it is, like 1,000 feet up, 2,000 feet up, you can feel the sun. Oh, I'm closer to the sun right now.
Definitely.
It's
Pretty
like-
intense. Yeah, so most of those deserts down there were made by just poor agriculture, probably, and a little bit of overgrazing. Like
Now, who would argue with you, like, about that? Would anybody argue with you?
anyone
like
into
some-
like the big ag kind of movement and the green revolution movement. It's like we put cows out there on these pastures, and cows are forest creatures. They belong in a forest.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, man, they graze in between trees and they eat all that like overgrowth in a forest.
I can't even picture a cow in the forest.
Right? Because you'd never see them in a forest. So, it's the vision that we have is like the farm is like this large expanse of like green. And what we did is we went in there, we cut all the trees down, right, to put cattle out there. We're doing it in the Amazon like every day. We're removing large tracts of virgin rainforest to put animals in there for meat. When in all reality, what we're doing is we're removing the one thing that moderates the climate on the planet, which is the trees. Like the trees actually moderate the climate. Like the first story about us deforesting was like the Epic of Gilgamesh. Like how old is that book? Like
Old.
it's one of the very first things ever written. And it was about removing the forests in Mesopotamia to build ships, to go conquer new lands, to build a navy, essentially. So like in Iraq, which is totally desert, everyone thinks it's like complete, the visions of Iraq is like that of a desert. The sun used to never hit the ground in Iraq because the cedar forests were so thick that the ground was totally shaded. They cut all that stuff down like 5,000 years ago to build ships to go take over the world.
Wow.
Greece, totally forested. They cut down all their trees to, build their empire. It's still deforested. Everyone thinks Greece is all beautiful, like these rocky hillsides. They're supposed to be fully forested, and the sun is not supposed to hit the ground. Wherever the sun hits the ground, you have it's like death, right?
Yeah.
So if you quit grazing animals and you quit everything, the planet will very quickly reforest itself. So that's the general energy of the planet, is to reforest itself. So in permaculture, we work with that force. We're not working against that, where everyone to maintain their little green lawns are working completely against that force of, you know,
the lawn
what are
thing
weeds?
the lawn thing is crazy.
What are weeds? Weeds are the pioneers that come in and repair the earth. They cover the ground. They create conditions for other plants to grow. And if you let the weeds go and you just watch it, literally watch it, it will turn into a forest on its own with you doing nothing. Like the seeds will get dropped by birds and like blowing on the wind. So
man, I don't know how weeds got such a bad rap. It's just, you know, so I figure the where all of this grass situation comes from is from the English influence.
Well, actually, the Taj Mahal was the first place that the English saw. The English saw a bunch of ladies with like scissors literally manicuring that lawn in front of the Taj Mahal, and they really liked it. So they brought that back to England and they did it around their castles. But it works there because it rains a lot. No, it works there because they had goats and sheep that they would put out there to keep it mowed, and they would just drop their manure, and the system was actually sustainable.
But what I'm saying is that I don't think people in England have to sit out there like watering their lawn.
No, not so much.
It's rainy, right?
It does. It's rainy and cold.
Yeah, so like Ireland, it's got grass like fucking everywhere.
Yeah, but we're talking about fertility. You know, like they feed them. They feed their lawns. They're buying in petrochemical and spraying it on their lawn to you know, green it up, which is mainly like nitrates and nitrogen, which ends up in the it ends up.
My lawn.
When I say petrochemicals, I mean like all fertilizer is kind of developed from petroleum or salts. It's either salt based or petroleum based, and salts like ruin soil. So like you're throwing off like salt, like soil. If you look at it under a microscope, it's very little aggregates, very little organic matter. It's mainly like things moving around in their like life. So it's like predominantly like bacteria, fungi, protozoa. I have a microscope. I look at compost and stuff under a microscope, and it's completely alive. If you dump petroleum on there in the form of fertilizers or fungicides or whatever, or salt-based fertilizers,
you're talking about real soil.
Talking about you just reach down in the earth and grab a handful. What you're looking at there is pretty much just tons of bacteria, and they're all like, they release like glues and like these substances that like glue everything together. And every time you fertilize or spray anything on there, you're killing all that stuff, and then you're left with like this devoid death, which in turn will turn to a desert. So like you see someone's like a really nice green lawn out here in Florida. If you dig underneath that lawn, it's pure sand. It's like desert sand. And the only thing sustaining that lawn is what they're spraying on there.
Yeah.
There's no nutrition in the soil at all.
Man.
Where that English manor that you used to see around castles, that was like maintained by goats and sheep. Like they would graze their animals out there, and they would, you know, drop turds everywhere. Like that would kind of keep the system going, where, you know, they don't do that anymore.
So there's the, you know how science is really big in our culture right now, especially with the internet and everybody's quoting science and where's the proof and whatnot.
Sure.
So you have that like mentality, which is very showy, but the application of it in society is it's not there.
It's bass backwards.
Yeah. The application in society, as far as like social structures and city structures and permaculture and growing things, it's like, it's not even being used.
Yeah. Like I said, man, I keep going back to that village homes model, because when you drive into village homes, it looks like this beautiful suburban neighborhood that we're totally used to seeing. So it's very pleasing to the eye.
Not to me.
But, well, it is, because all the trees you see are covered with food. The place is in like complete abundance, and every year it gets better, and it's a 30-year-old system. So it's like, it's a great model, because, you know, personally, I don't like that design and that suburban kind of thing, but if you could sell people on that, and be like, whoa, this place actually produces something it doesn't use. It's not consuming anything. Every year it gets better. There's more fruit. I mean, people make wine there, and like there's little businesses popping up within the community.
I read an article recently that basically was saying, and it was a pretty long article, and it was saying that it's natural for people to dislike suburbia. And
yeah, because we come from nature. We come from the woods. We come from the forest. And suburbia
and
removes that.
everybody knows somewhere inside of them, even if they live there, that there's something wrong with what they're living at. You know, it's not conducive to walking. It's built around an automobile.
Yeah, I mean, like everything is built around the car. So like if you look at someone's house, you look at the amount of space they have as for a driveway, and they might have one car, maybe two cars. There's still tons more room. Yeah. You just rip up that pavement and grow a garden there, and do something a little more productive with it. You know?
Yeah. So I would totally, if I knew more about how and if I had the time, I would do something like that.
We need more models, and that's what I did with my properties. I built a model to kind of like lure people in, be like, whoa, this looks interesting. This is not your average like lawn kind of suburban landscape, although it sits within a neighborhood that's totally like that. Yeah. So like on either side of me and across the street, looks just like everyone else's house, but they're, you know.
Well, you live in a place where the houses are still old. It's not a subdivision.
No,
but it's a neighborhood.
Those gated subdivisions and stuff, they just all need to go away. That's a huge problem.
Yeah, it's just weird though, because it's weird how it was the shit. It was the fad for so long. It was like, oh, this is where I want to move. This is where I want to live.
It still is.
Look, it's such a lonely place.
Let's take Nocatee, like our local, like newest neighborhood that everyone's trying to move to.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man.
I know somebody who's moving there.
I know.
Like right now.
Yeah, I know people that have built houses there.
I don't want to say anything. They said something. They're like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "Where are you moving to?" It's like, "Oh," I was like, "Oh."
There's a water park with a lazy river, right? Well, what about like having like a clean river, spring-fed, beautiful clean river, which is what we used to have flowing through this place. You know, we mucked up that water so bad, and it's full of so many like nitrates and phosphates that you can't even swim in it anymore, and people have to build these like fictitious like lazy rivers with chlorinated water.
Wow.
That place has its own water park, you know, and people love it. People probably move there because of the water park.
Well, I played a gig there.
Did you?
Yeah, I played a gig there in this central Nocatee like ballroom. If you live there, you pay your dues or something on
sure.
And you share it.
Sure.
And
it's part of your association fees.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And I played this gig there, and I kid you not, I was like driving through a ghost town. Does anybody live here? Like nobody lives there. It's like I saw no cars. I'm like, wow.
Weird.
It felt like I saw this video of this mall, I think in China or North Korea, and it was like all empty, like this mall.
Sure.
And that's what it felt like.
Huh.
And I was like, this is
the whole
creepy.
Neighborhood was like that, or just that central area?
Everywhere that I drove through.
Weird.
Like the main roads that lead to the side roads, and then even going to the place.
Yeah.
It was like...
So there's a lot of room to plant that place up. See, I look at things like that. I look at them from a different perspective. I'm like, there's a lot of potential here, right? You know, if we replace all these stupid crepe myrtles and like trees that don't really produce anything for us with like fruit trees, and like started diverting the water off the streets to irrigate like these fruit trees, you know, you can get into abundance within about 5 years. 5 years later, you could flip a neighborhood like that.
So you just got to do like we need to start a guerrilla.
It's happening.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's a guerrilla movement.
Let's not talk about it.
You know who's kind of leading the revolution there is, like, believe it or not, Oakland. Lots of young permaculturists.
They're just going out and doing it.
Yeah, man, they're throwing seed balls. Have you ever seen a seed ball? Mm-mm. It's like you take seeds of.
Right. I thought it had something to do with sex.
No. So seed balls are like you take like native. You take like native plants. Mm-hmm. You take like healing plants, like plants that actually heal the soil and rebuild soil, and you get a bunch of different seeds, and you mix them with a little bit of compost, and you mix them with a little bit of clay, and you roll them up. You make this little dense clay ball, and you dry it out in the sun. You just kind of chuck them, right where you want to. I did that.
Oh, okay.
So you kind of just like chuck them where you want fertility to start to grow, and the clay protects the seeds from birds eating them, and then like it protects them from drying out. And then what you do is you just kind of wait for rain, and that seed ball will melt and sprout, and you got a little ecosystem within each seed ball. I've seen seed ball gumball machines, like gumball machines converted to seed ball machines in San Francisco and Oakland, where you just put a quarter in, turn it, a seed ball comes out full of native plants.
I gotta get out of here, like this quadrant of the country.
Yeah, Southeast is rough, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not gonna save it.
You know, and I didn't build,
save it.
and I didn't build my model to save it. I'm pretty much over it too, because there are pockets where there's more activity happening, and like this place I was just at in Colorado, this community is completely resilient. It's an artist community mainly, but
So
everyone grows.
So people are
food.
already living there where you're at. Because I saw a little short video of a bulldozer. And
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like, it was like,
Yeah.
and the front of the bulldozer fell off actually. But,
Well, what we were doing is we were trying to heal degraded, like desertified land, and sometimes you got to use these same machines that people are like destroying the planet with. You can actually use those same machines to fix and heal
of
problems.
course.
So what we do is we were cutting in what we call swales. It's a permaculture term. It's basically like a ditch that you build on contour, meaning it's dead level. So when it rains, the water rolls downhill and doesn't just keep running down the hill. It gets caught in this little ditch.
yeah.
And it fills up dead level across the landscape. And then so the water can actually soak back into the earth and percolate downhill, as opposed to just run off and create erosion and take all the fertility with it. So we were building these swales on contours with, you know, heavy machinery. And that's a really good tactic in a desert that doesn't get much rain. Like they get like 2 or 3 big rain events a year. It's like you want to soak every last drop that comes out of the sky back into the ground, not into ponds, not into tanks, because all that stuff evaporates. When you get it down into the soil, it stays put. Then if you mulch that soil and shade that soil, it stays put longer. And then when you keep doing this, like say you got like a hill and you cut in one of these trenches across the hill on contour, you do one beneath it, you do one beneath it, all the way down the hill. Eventually what happens is like these old spring lines that weren't there, or that have dried up from us pumping too much groundwater, start to fill back up, and springs will start to shoot out of the ground where someone might not have seen a spring
Wow.
in a long time. And so it's just a way to rehydrate the land.
Yeah. That's great, man. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and it's really easy technology. It's just like using what's already there, just in a more sensible way. Like there's plenty of bulldozers out there. There's plenty. I mean, like it costs. Somebody told me it's like $4 million a mile to pave a highway.
Wow.
$4 million for a mile.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, if you put $4 million in heavy equipment on a degraded landscape, my goodness, you could turn that thing around like
What,
instantly.
acres and acres of it?
Hundreds of acres.
Wow.
With
Yeah.
4 million? Yeah, man. Like people do it with shovels. People are hand digging them, like in India and stuff, like building huge dams and swales, and like you can make like big ponds that are connected to these swales that overflow and fill up other ponds, and you can grow fish in these ponds. Like kind of like you've seen images of like Thailand and like Asia where they have these terraced like hillsides.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing, is they're stopping the water from running off the side of the mountain and eroding everything with it. They're capturing it, and they become like deposition chambers for organic matter. And they build their own fertility. So every year that rice that's being grown, it's more fertile there.
So what got you into this? Like, when you were a little kid, were you always in the garden?
My grandma actually, yeah, she used to take me. Well, I moved from San Francisco when I was 8.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah, well, I didn't do anything like this in San Francisco.
Yeah.
My grandma's from Palestine. She's like an old school farmer type, and I moved here before my parents actually moved here. So I had like a year with my grandma before my parents actually moved over. They were like finishing up like their business and selling the house and everything. So they sent me to start school early, a year early, and my grandma would make me go out there and water all the plants with her and tend her gardens. And she was growing like Arabic food, you know, like that no one even knows about.
Like what?
Egyptian spinach.
okay.
They call it mulchia. It's also jute. It's known as jute. Like this is a staple. Like it's the most widely eaten green in the Middle East. It's a staple dish. She was
What
grown.
does it look like?
It's just a little green leaf, man. About it's like yay big.
Like a baby spinach?
This doesn't look like spinach.
Oh,
It's in
wow.
the okra family. It's actually kind of mucilaginous. Like it's got like it's kind of slimy. and they use it to thicken up like soups and things.
Okay.
So you could buy it at like Hala or any Middle Eastern.
So it's that texture like okra or like nopal. Like
yeah, it's a staple
mucusy.
food. Yeah, it's a staple food in the Middle East. She was growing that. She was growing all kinds of interesting crops. But see, my grandma came from like an old school organic farming background where they didn't have fertilizer back in Palestine. They would use, like sheep dung and make compost and like mulch and everything. And then she came here, and people were taking this blue powder.
Miracle Grow.
Yeah, man, and throwing like this blue powder in a gallon jug, shaking it up, and you got this magical blue liquid. You pour that shit on a plant, and the plant grows like hell, right?
Yeah.
You can watch the damn thing grow.
Science.
That's the green revolution, brother. So my grandma saw that, and she was hooked on the Miracle Grow, man. Like, it was all about like black cow and Miracle Grow. And she grew awesome crops, but she knew how to do it back home, but she didn't know any better because, this is like progress, right? So she moved from Palestine to here.
Yeah, man.
It's like progress.
It's canned food.
Oh, God.
Television.
Yeah, crappy
microwaves.
food, right? All the above. Yeah, she had a microwave too, and
the way of the future.
Yeah, I got away from all that about 7 years ago. Like, completely changed my diet, my lifestyle, and everything. Just quit eating cooked food in general. I just went on a completely raw vegan diet like overnight. Don't suggest anyone ever do that. It's a rapidly detoxifying thing, but when you do that, you reconnect to your food even on a deeper level, and then it's all about like not just fresh food, but you want like nutrient dense food grown out of like really dank soil full of minerals, because you really feel that when you eat food that's grown out of the right soil. You feel better, you have more energy.
Man, when I go to the grocery store around here, which is there's two big chains, the produce in there is always so disappointing.
It has no flavor.
It's bad. It's so disappointing, man. And I've grown my own tomatoes and cucumbers, and then I didn't realize
how good they taste.
People say that, like but you don't know until you do it.
No, it's huge. Yeah, and the thing is, here's the test. Go in your grocery store, buy like some spinach that's in like one of those clear clamshell containers, put it in your fridge. Watch how long that stuff lasts.
About 4 or 5 days.
If you're
6.
lucky, man. And the organic stuff's even worse because it's coming out of California. It's already a week old.
Yeah.
So you get it, and it's like in 2 days, it's gone. It's yellow and limp and all rotting in there and stinky. Yeah. And that stuff from California that's being grown organically, just because it says organic does not mean it's good food, because that just means it wasn't sprayed with chemicals. But it's being grown out of crap soil, just like the conventional food. Yeah. So the minerals aren't there, the sugars aren't there that you want that nourish your body. So, organic food's kind of a joke now. It's become a joke. It's like it's commercial crap. Yeah. Really.
Yeah. Hey, commercialization will ruin everything.
Yep. And they're getting top dollar for commercial crap too. I mean, like organic produce
I don't
is so
fall
expensive.
for it. Yeah. I thought it was legit before, but now that I know that these big companies have bought these organic, small organic companies, and like they're buying, the big breweries are buying craft breweries.
Sure, they're buying them out, and
they're buying them out, and maybe changing their formula a little bit,
putting their label on there, and, or jazzing up the existing label.
Or they don't put the label on there; they put in the back. You could say, Budweiser company.
You're right. They'll put a fancy label on a Budweiser beer and call it craft beer. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's happening all the time.
Yeah, it's happening more and more. Sure. And the people, it's kind of like the startup thing on the internet. The goal is to start something up so you can sell it to Facebook or Google, because that's where the money is. Like, they're going to pay you like $3 billion.
Sure.
So a lot of the goals of a lot of the breweries right now, except for, there's plenty of people that are not thinking that way because they got into it for the craft of it.
Yeah.
There's people who are getting into it now to sell to the big companies because it's a lot of money.
Oh, right. There's people that absolutely love it. One example, I found this quite interesting. There's this little town I was in Colorado. It's kind of like a hippie artist community, but everyone grows food. And
you told me you're not going to tell me the name of it.
No, I don't want to. But everyone grows cannabis there too, right? So there's like this booming like cannabis industry, but everyone is like into like quality on everything. Like, they want the best food, they want the best cannabis, they want the best everything. There's a brew, they grow hops in this valley, right?
Is it expensive to live there?
No,
No?
not really. Everything's on the honor system. Everyone trades. It's pretty cool, man. You can just drive up to someone's farm that has a walk-in cooler with their produce in it.
Mm-hmm.
You just pull right up to the cooler, open the cooler, grab your own produce, and literally there's a basket in there with a suggested price, and you just kind of like make a donation and grab your food and go. You don't even have to go in there and talk to the farmer or anything. And they leave these things open 24 hours a day. You can just pull up in the middle of the night. It's all in the honor system. But so there's this, and that's not the only state I've seen that in. I've seen that in Washington State too. But so they grow a lot of hops in this valley. It's a perfect microclimate to grow hops. Hops are in the cannabis family. Like they're related, like botanically. But so, you know, hops is what makes good beer. So there's this brewery in Denver that flies a Cessna to this hops farm once a year, and they'll harvest the hops with the farmer, fresh, put them in these big sacks, put them on a plane within 20 minutes, and fly 45 minutes back to Denver and get them in the like literally put them in the big brewing machine, like fresh. Like we're talking like an hour from being picked. And so no one does that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what does that beer even taste like, man? Probably amazing, right? Like, super fresh, like ultra hopped beer.
Yeah, I always wonder if beer tastes better, like right after if it's brewed.
Yeah.
Or whenever it's ready.
Yeah.
Like if you can get it like right there.
Well, most of the time they take hops, they dry them, and they
turn them into like
compress them
pellets. Yeah.
This is like a living flower full of like essential oil that's like very aromatic and flavorful. And they're flying. They're not even driving it to Denver, and it's like 4-hour drive from this valley to Denver.
Yeah.
They're flying them, so they get them there in like an hour.
So that Cessna stinks.
Yeah, it's funny. They're loading up this thing. It's like they're smuggling drugs, man. They're loading it up with hops in these big sacks. And I think the brewery's Left Hand Brewery out of Denver, and that's a very special brew that they do like once a year, and they only work with that one like hops farmer. So like, talk about quality and like commitment to like having a pure product. That's like the general mindset in that part of the world.
Yeah,
like where
that's amazing, man.
Well, it's not here. Yeah, you know, like people really care about what they do, right?
People are very confused here right now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They're it's like
It's because people watch TV, man. They're glued to their TV.
Yeah, I picture like two armies of like 2,000 years ago, like just clashing into each other. It's like there's like,
right? No, for real.
You got these young people and you got these older Republicans, and they're like,
it's pretty bad. And right here, your neighborhood is like kind of like, it's hip, right? This part of town is pretty hip, and there's a lot of young people moving in this part of town. But like, are they doing anything? No, they're at the bars getting shit-faced every night, you know, trying to get laid. Like, that's what everyone's doing, right?
Yeah.
No one's actually doing anything. Like, if we could get them to actually do something, then
I never really liked the bar scene. Like, I don't understand. You'll hardly have ever seen me at a bar. But I've gone to bars.
Well, you play music, so you're always at a bar.
But I mean, but I mean, I'm there like in my leisure time, like what's supposed to be my leisure time.
Yeah.
I never understood, even when I was 18 years old.
Yeah, it's kind of boring, isn't it?
I didn't understand. I'm done. Like after 2 hours, I'm done. Like totally, you know.
Yeah, it's not fun.
And I'm like, why can't we get together and do something else? Like, why can't we do something else?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There is a permaculture movement in Jacksonville that they do have meetups and they do get shit done, you know, but it's a city of 1 million and there's like 10 people that show up at these meetups. It's like, you know, we're like, there's some other pockets in the country where like the whole town will converge.
So what are all these other people doing?
You know, it's just about quality of life, really. It's like they want to live a good life. They don't want to live in a tainted environment.
Means, Netflix.
No, I don't think
weekends off.
Well, Netflix.
I mean, to people, to the average
life,
Joe.
You know, let's just talk about very simple, basic needs like clean water that's not tainted with chemicals. Good food. Because you eat good food, you're going to be healthy. You can't get that. You can't get good water.
So you can't get good food, but you're under the impression that you're getting it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Because they'll put that organic label on there, and you'll think you're buying something. It's super overpriced, and like only the health food stores sell that kind of food. Mm-hmm. You know, like West Coast's a little different. You can walk into your normal like brand name like grocery store and get organic food, but once again, it's organic food that's coming from a farm that doesn't care about the planet. They're just exploiting the piece of land that they have to grow yield. It's all about that bottom line, about that weight, because that farmer wants to have the most weight coming off of his farm because that's what makes him money. It's not like less weight and better soil, which means better food with a higher nutrient density. That's actually gonna, because like from a nutrient density standpoint, that food will fill you up quicker. So you don't even have to eat as much food. You're eating all this empty calories with no nutrition in it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so you can eat a lot less food and get more nutrition. That's the name of the game when you're talking about like building soil and composting and like, I mean, I'm not saying composting is going to save the planet or anything like that.
It sounds like it. Why not?
Well, I mean, like compost heaps are actually, they release a lot of, there's different ways to do it.
Okay.
Like you look at...
not composting, I mean permaculture.
Yeah,
permaculture
well just modeling nature. So if you look at the forest, what's the forest do every year? The trees drop all their leaves, and that builds a fertility that feeds the worms and everything down there. So we just have to look at these very simple things. They're so obvious, but permaculture is based in observation. So we observe what's happening around us in nature. We're like, okay, well, that makes sense because that actually works. And that's been working for like 5 billion years. Like, why would we change that now? You know, we're too smart. We get bored.
We're smart. We're smarter than God.
Right? It's really, really interesting to sit there and watch it.
We're smarter than the universe.
Right?
So look, I saw this video, like, I don't know, man, like in 2008 or something like that on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And the video was a guy who went to like the Gobi Desert. I don't know where the desert was. He said that he tried to pick the most arid place on the planet. It rains like...
Oh, you're talking about Jeff Lawton, the permaculture guy?
Maybe. And he said it was called greening the desert.
Okay. Now
is that bullshit?
Okay, so check it out. That guy, his name's Jeff Lawton. He's who I got my permaculture designer certificate from his school. All right, so he was I told you Bill Mollison in the 70s started permaculture. Well, his top student was this guy, Jeff Lawton, who's another Aussie. He's from Australia. Jeff's just a really smart guy, and he went, not the Gobi Desert, but he went to the Dead Sea Valley in Jordan. It's on the other side of the Palestinian border. It's the lowest, saltiest, driest place on the planet. So the water there, when you turn, if you dig a well, you turn on the water, it's brackish water. It's salt. There's not even fresh water there. So deserts are like these salty environments. Like the soil's so salty, nothing will grow in it. So he went there and he put in a project called the Greening the Desert Project. And literally in 4 months, they were growing figs. And everyone laughed at him because they were like, why are you planting all these trees that don't produce anything? Because he was planting all these trees that heal the landscape. And we plant trees in permaculture that you literally just grow to cut and mulch. You know, nature grows trees and then they die in the winter and they're self-mulching. So we kind of model that, and we grow these trees very specifically that grow fast to create woody mulch that we put back on the ground that breaks down and turns into compost. It's no one's having to build these compost piles it's happening on its own. So why build a compost pile when you can just grow a bunch of fast growing shit, cut it down with a sharp rice knife and throw it on the ground and let it happen on its own?
Who was laughing at him? Guys with top hats on?
Oh no, all the Arabs in the area that have been farming the same way for so long. They were like, what the hell is this guy doing? So it was really interesting because he left for 3 months and he got a call in 3 months, and the guy was they were freaking out because they were digging around a fig tree or something that they planted, and they saw a bunch of bugs in the soil, and then they saw fungus. They had never seen fungus, mycelium running on the ground in all of recorded history because there's never been enough moisture there to actually grow mushrooms, and it was all happening on its own because he was cutting up, we call it chopping and dropping, where you grow like a fast growing bush or a tree, chop it down, throw it on the ground. It's chopping and dropping. So they were just chopping and dropping everything, and that makes this nice woody mulch, and fungus likes to grow under it, and the fungus actually eats the mulch and turns it into humus, which in turn feeds your plants. That's kind of how it works. Fungus will actually eat rock too. It will extract minerals from rocks. So you want like a nice fungal. If you go into any forest and you start digging around, you're going to see like white threads in the soil. That's like that's building the forest. So
what you have going on around your house, I remember you telling me that you had something growing because it puts
nitrogen
into the soil.
Yep. Like leguminous plants do that.
And you have like this earthworm farm, right?
Yeah.
And it's like it's turning the soil black.
Well, yeah, it's like instead of like composting, which is like building this big heap of all this food scrap, and it attracts like a lot of rodents to your yard or whatever, and whatever things just show up there.
Yeah,
you can do like in a Rubbermaid container and have like a controlled kind of environment, and you put a bunch of red wigglers in there. They're like composting worms, and they live in the top layer of like litter on the forest floor. They don't live in the soil. They live where the decomposing material is, and they tunnel through there, and they eat and they poop, and that poop is like the most nutritious like fertilizer you can put on your plants.
Would you eat it?
No, but I saw I literally, this is funny that you bring this up. I'm gonna leave this person unnamed, but I was showing someone my earthworm bin, and it was totally finished. There's worms and stuff in there, but like my bin's not totally secure. We have these big like palmetto bugs here in the South that you've seen them.
Yeah.
People call them roaches. They're just huge like roaches.
Yeah, I hate them.
And they get into your earthworm bins if they're not like totally sealed. And like, so I'm showing this guy my earthworm bin, and it's like just a layer of perfect castings on top. And I opened it up. I was like, you might see a couple roaches run out of there, but it's like part of the process. So dude opens the lid, looks down, he's like, wow, that's some good earthworm shit, or whatever. And like, I'm sitting here talking to him, I'm giving him a tour. He reaches down, and he eats the earthworm castings. It's their poop.
Yeah.
And he puts a little in his mouth, and he starts like, kind of like chewing on it.
Yeah.
And he like spits out a little bit, and I just like, I almost lost it, man. Like I seriously almost lost it, because like he didn't, I just kept talking like it didn't even happen. And I was like, man, this dude's a wild man. Like, what is up?
Didn't say anything?
I didn't say
it. So inside you were like, okay.
I look at this stuff under the microscope, man. Like, I look at my earthworm castings. I take a sample. I put it on a slide. I have a very scientific like microscope, and I'll look at it. And what's in there is like awe-inspiring. It's just like billions of bacteria and protozoas and all these little critters running around. It's basically probiotics, right? It's what people buy to eat from the health food store. It's like living organic bacteria. So essentially that dude just consumed like, who knows how many billion. Yeah. And I guess if you're really toxic, like in your gut, you'll have a reaction to it for sure, because you're putting in so many good guys at once. If you have all this pathogenic bacteria in your gut, you're going to have like this clash, right? And it will make you sick. So he never got sick or anything, which leads me, I didn't ask him. He would have told me, I'm sure, but which leads me to believe he had a pretty healthy like gut flora to begin with, to be pulling something like that, Like, I mean, you can eat dirt, right? So the same organisms that are in your gut are the same organisms that are in the soil. They're soil-based organisms. They're the same exact critters, right? Exact. 70% of the air that's in this room right now is lactic acid bacteria, which they put in little capsules of probiotics that we pay like shitload of money for. But the thing about that guy consuming those earthworm castings is literally we saw like a bunch of roaches like scurry out right across the surface. Man. Like, oh man.
But they're not roaches, they're palmetto bugs.
Palmetto bugs, right? Yeah. Which is just a giant ass roach, which if you're not from the South, you don't even know what we're talking about.
I don't know how roaches are, or they're in Texas too. But roaches
in Louisiana and Georgia and like the Southeast.
But these things, I don't understand how they're so repulsive to people.
Yeah.
Because they are.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you hear like those high violins, like.
Yeah, people freak out. I still
you're
jump.
In the bathroom, you're like.
Yeah, I still kind of jump, and it's weird because I'm like kind of embedded in the natural world a lot.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of weird like
I
nature
don't know
around.
What it is about them, man.
And you remember that band Blind Melon?
Yeah.
In the 90s? Like, I really liked that band. Like, Shannon Hoon was an amazing front man. It was a shame that he had passed, but he had a fear, like a massive fear of roaches. And he was from Mississippi, I believe. And he ended up getting a tattoo, like completely around his neck, like this. It looked like a Mayan, like kind of design But if you look at it closely, there's all these big like cockroaches, and he was like, that's what kind of helped him get over his fear of cockroach.
Wow.
It's pretty wild. I think like the Mayans used to do that. If they were like scared of something, they would like tattoo it on them. It was supposed to protect them from it. And like he had this, you couldn't tell. Like it looked like a pretty cool tattoo at a glance, but it was a bunch of roaches.
Man, I've never reached a level of manliness that my father exemplified to me once. We were living in California. I was a little kid, I guess, 10. That's a little kid.
Yeah,
something
we're
like
both
that.
from California. That's awesome, man. I forgot about that.
And yeah, I lived there until I was like 23. And so there was a roach on the wall, and then my father just goes, blah, and he just kills the roach with his hand. Like
yeah, we use like newspaper, shoes, like whatever we can grab.
And then I was silent, and I watched him. Just this happened in seconds, right? He went blam. The thing fell on the floor. He went to go grab some napkin, and he picked it up, and then he washed his hand. And I'm like, the
guy's a badass.
He goes, yeah, you just wash your hand.
That's it.
I'm like, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel it explode under my hand.
Right. Well, you know, he comes from a different generation too, where like, you know, he's from Mexico, right? Obviously. Yeah. So like down there, they were more connected to the natural world. Things didn't freak him out.
Oh, he was very connected to the natural world.
Yeah.
He grew up on a ranch.
Cool.
With goats and a river. I kid you not, like 20 yards from the house. It was awesome. It was so close that my grandmother had to move out of there for part of the year because the river started shifting.
Sure.
And the river would come up, and they just built too close to that river.
Gotcha.
And it started shifting, you know. And I guess you can reshift the river, but they didn't have that kind of money to do that. And I went there.
Probably be a bad idea to reshift it as well.
Really?
Well, I mean,
you got to move your house, right?
Yeah, you just put your house too close to the river, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it was not just her house, because they had this thing. They had like I don't know, like 8 houses, a row of 8 houses, and a lot of the houses, people from the United States would come and vacation there.
Huh.
You know, and this was in the middle of nowhere, but
what part of Mexico?
He grew up there. He grew up in that kind of environment.
Is it like near the coast?
Oh, Mexicali.
North?
It's in Mexicali. But I'll tell you what, man. I was 11 when I went there, and what I remember is when I went to San Diego, when I went to the border of Calexico and Mexicali.
Yeah.
I remembered where my grandmother was. At her house, you know. So it's like this river in the middle of this arid.
Yeah. It's the lifeline, I'm sure, of that community. Like, without that, they probably wouldn't have anything.
Yeah, man. And then, you know, I step off of the river and you walk a little while, just a little bit, and then all the soil is cracked.
Yep.
You know how it looks like in those desert movies?
Well, it's like that in where I just came from, man.
So
like,
it's
everything's
cracked, and
cracked.
you step on it, and you step on there, and there's this, like, I call it like this glorious gray mud.
Oh, when it gets wet, it sticks to everything.
And you can get all over your hand, and you just turn white.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like yogurt.
It's probably very healing to lay down and like cover yourself in it. Yeah,
man. It's
like
probably really good for your skin.
Bentonite clay and all this fine like kaolite.
I was 11 years old. I'm like, we could sell this,
right?
Like people go to.
You know, that leads me to another thing about all of this, the soil. You know, because like you're describing like this cracked, desertified soil. And what's going on there is like, so that's very fertile soil, meaning there's tons of minerals and fertility in it, right? But what happened is at some point that land was probably covered with some kind of grass or shrubbery. And we overgrazed animals in there and they ate it all down to nothing. And then nothing would grow there, right? So it's like this dried, cracked soil. And what you do is you can restore that by bringing the biology back into it. So you can like kind of like speed it up, the repair, because we have the science to do this now. You can look at it under a microscope. I do this all the time, and I don't have any kind of scientific training at all. I've taught myself this stuff. Yeah. Where you can look at this soil, you can be like, wow, there's plenty of bacteria in here, but there's no fungi and there's no protozoa. So it's missing like important parts of the soil food web, which you know, is there has to be like many parts to healthy soil. So you could see what it's missing, and then you can like make a brew, like a compost tea or like a biodynamic prep or something to throw back on the land and put the biology back on the land. You're brewing up literally a 5-gallon bucket full of water with biology in it, and you know what's in there because you can sample it, look at it under the microscope, and put it back on the land. and then like seed that land, like put the grass or shrubs back on it. And you can bring that back into like a complete like homeostasis within like a couple of years.
Wow.
You can get the biology working in 2 weeks.
Can you do it on Mars?
You know, they're probably doing it on Mars. And like, I know you're into like studying all that stuff. And trust me, they're up there already.
On the moon? Can you do it on the moon?
Man, they're up there. You know they are. You know, there's reports when people landed, if we even landed up there, that there was already a lot of stuff built on the moon, you know?
Yeah.
Call me a conspiracy theorist or whatever, but I think we're on all those rocks, like doing stuff.
I think the possibilities are endless. And,
yeah.
For that, you know, I don't subscribe to the idea that that we know. I don't know, like anything. Really, like we know very little.
Very little. And then, we don't even know what's going on our own planet, not alone what's going on in Mars.
Talking about permaculture, it shows that even what we do know, we don't utilize it.
No.
You know.
Why is that?
I don't know. We're just retarded, man. It's because we're in the foundations of our dominant culture across the world are rooted in the thing that you said, which is not related to anything in the natural world.
Yeah.
How did you put it?
Yeah, just that's not considered progress, right?
Yeah. So it's not related to anything, any natural system.
No.
So that's the problem. That's the problem. It's like this abstraction.
Unfortunately, the models are there. Like, look at the Dust Bowl back in the 20s. Like, we had all this leftover nitrates from the war, and we're like, oh wow, you throw nitrates down on the soil, it makes plants grow like hell. So we grew bumper crops in Kansas and Nebraska of like all this wheat and like, you know, all these grains. And next thing you know, it was a straight desert. And there was literally sandstorms, like, you know, dust storms, like, you know, miles high, and everything was covered in freaking like, and people forget about that. That was not that long ago. And we're doing it right now. We're absolutely doing the same thing right now. You know?
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy to think about.
It is. I try
and
not to think about it. It's so crazy.
Made up. This isn't like made. You have children, so like you know, like I feel for these kids that got to grow up in this world.
Yeah, man.
With you know, with these models that don't work. You know, hopefully something will shift, but like it's gonna require possibly a revolution on some level, and I don't even mean like an industrial or like an agriculture. I mean like
with guns and shit.
Probably, man.
Really? Yeah.
Like, I mean,
hey, you know what? The internet is a revolution in a sense.
Sure.
If like
because the information's
Facebook doesn't
there,
fuck it up,
right? Because the information's there, and now we can actually educate ourselves. But what are we doing? We're watching like YouTube videos of people playing video games.
Do you know why I have such an aversion to Facebook? Have you ever wondered that?
No.
Well, it's like there's the list is like 100 points
it's
long.
A pretty weird platform.
It's a pretty weird platform, but one of them related to what we're talking about is that it's taken something that has worldwide knowledge and access and built all these subdivisions like housing around all like. What's the point of the technology that we come up with? What's the point of it just imitating the limitations that already exist?
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of that? Like,
I think it's to separate humans from other humans too. You know, like the more separation we can throw in there, you know, like the
more profitable it is, because then you have to get your own cable box and I have to get my own cable box.
Yeah, it's
you know, like everybody on my block has their own lawnmower.
Right.
They use it once every 2 weeks.
Right.
We could rotate a lawnmower all down the block.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. Absolutely. That makes way too much sense, man.
Yeah.
Like entirely too much sense.
So
I don't have a lawnmower. I got rid of that thing about 7 years ago.
Yeah, man, I've seen your yard
when I killed my yard.
Hey, you know, I if you don't mind, if you can in the near future or like tomorrow, if you can like give me a couple of pictures of your place, so I can put them on the show notes.
Sure.
That would be great.
Yeah, you can also check out our. We've been kind of like video logging it over the years. You can go
I'll put that link on there too.
Yeah, you can go on YouTube and just search like Eli and Val Permaculture. Val was my partner that helped me build all this. And there's many videos and they've caught on. We get calls from all over the world. Like I got a call from a lady who just bought a couple acres in Costa Rica. So in September, I'm going down to design her property to be more ecologically like, sustaining. And a lot of people can like, ecological landscaping, right? So that's one aspect of permaculture, right? It's a good place to start because it's your immediate environment, and if it flows with the ecology of your environment, you know, it's always going to work better. We have had people from India, people from all over the world find these videos on YouTube, and they get on there.
That's great, man.
No, it's very cool, but it's just like, I never thought those videos would actually take off. I don't even own the videos. A local videographer came out and he shot these videos he comes out every year, like twice a year, and he'll film a couple. His name is Johnny Mars. You can go to his YouTube page as well.
Yeah.
He's got a bunch of permaculture stuff on there.
So I just want people to know that your place, you have no lawn.
No.
You have no front lawn, no back lawn. Even along the sides,
killed it all.
It's like food stuff or things related to the food growing.
Or things that build soil that help the food grow.
Yeah.
So like what we did is we literally covered the front yard, which people parked on. Like they used it as like a driveway. It was just like a hard, compacted, sandy lot with weeds growing in it. And we just covered it with cardboard and got a truck to come in and drop off like 20 yards. That's like a dump truck full of like horse poop and wood chips. We literally just covered the whole entire.
It was out.
Literally covered. We're getting invaded by chocolate labs.
Yeah, it's like I'm supposed to walk him already. It's time to
he's
walk.
He's ready to walk.
Yeah.
Your dog just like regulates you.
Yeah.
So we killed a yard by literally just covering it with cardboard, which excludes all the sunlight from hitting the ground. And then we put mulch, like a thick layer of mulch over the whole yard, and that mulch just happened to contain wood chips and horse poop. And so, you know, we put it on like this thick over the whole yard. So obviously that's kind of like
feet.
Yeah, like as much as we could. But you can't plant right into that right away. So we smothered the whole front yard with this fertility and let it kind of rot down while we worked on the back. So then we started our annual gardens and our production gardens for food for the kitchen. We call it the kitchen garden, right out the back door. So that way, as the front was like mellowing out from all that fertility we put on there, we were growing food in the back. And then when the front kind of chilled out and wasn't hot anymore because it was very hot, then we just chipped in holes and started planting fruit trees, and then trees to sustain the fruit trees, nitrogen fixing shrubs and trees, and some trees just specifically we call them nurse trees. They help. If you look in a forest, you look at like a tree in the forest, there's all this stuff happening around the tree. We call them guilds. Like that tree has a guild of plants around it, and they're all working in some like symbiosis. So if you've ever seen the movie like Avatar, it's like they're talking about the trees are like communicating with each other. This is really happening in nature. That's not just Hollywood crap. You know, it's really happening, and you can kind of like facilitate that process. You could speed that up by planting certain.
I gotta walk my dog.
Right.
So if I wanted to start like doing permaculture, what would I have to do? Wait, Niven. I'll be right there.
I would train your dog, but no, I'm just kidding.
I would literally
start. I would literally start small and just start right out your back door, in just very small increments, and kind of just build from there. So like I said, you don't want to like go big. I went big, but the best thing to do is just literally start out your back door. Even if you don't have like a yard, just get some container plants.
When you say start, like what does that mean? Like get container plants and
whatever you can do. Kill your yard, get some container plants, buy in some soil, get something growing, get some life there.
We couldn't really get anything growing here for whatever reason, and I got something growing where I used to live.
So obviously there's some issues with the soil.
Some of that Miracle Grow soil,
right,
that I put in there, it actually grew.
Right,
you know, the stuff. But
so what you have is like degraded soil down there that does not sustain life. So you got to build that up. So
we just let the leaves fall.
Yeah,
we just keep letting them leave. I mean,
that'll work.
It's not working right now though.
It's probably too shady or something. You probably need some more sun. There's some requirements.
On the stuff that we're trying to grow?
Yeah, I mean, there's some requirements, and water, sunlight, and good soil are like the three major ones. So maybe you don't have enough sun. Maybe that soil's like tainted because like in this part of the world, like people use like weird like arsenic and lead-based paints, and there's like incineration sites around here where people
I don't want to eat that.
will burn trash. But you can fix all that stuff pretty simply by just like getting the biology. Like I said, there's biology that eats toxic chemicals and turns it into, like when something passes through an earthworm's gut, it literally sterilizes it. So it can be toxic going in, and it can come out as like, you know, pure earthworm castings, which some people like to reach down and eat. Apparently. It's super bizarre.
Man, hey man, you got to come back, dude.
Okay. We'll do round 2.
Yeah, that would be great.
It's getting late. Yeah, let's do round 2.
All right, cool.
We'll chat some more.
All right, excellent, man. It's
been
good to see you. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And we can talk about some music in the future.
Sure.
And about that, what is it called? The amplifier thing? Holy shit.
Oh, you're talking about the preamp?
The preamps.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about preamps and stuff.
Because I got, like, Goliath has got this little studio we're chilling in, and I got a little recording studio at my house, and he's come over and laid down some tracks, and they were amazing. Like, you guys should check out this guy's music.
Yeah, I can't let Nubis wake the babies up.
What's your email address or your website? GoliathFlores.com?
Yeah. www. I don't know why it doesn't work if you don't do the www. It pisses me off. It's weird.
Yeah, check out his music. Yeah. It's amazing. He's my favorite.
Thank you.
My favorite Latin musician here in town. One of the only ones. And this dude got a flamenco dancer with him these days, so it's he's taking it up a notch, man. Check it out.
All right, man.
On.
We'll do this again soon.
All right, brother.
All right, cool.
Yeah, thanks. Nubis.
Donate to the podcast if you like it. It's at atlanticradio.blogspot.com. Thank you.